Hey y'all, so we're out here next day and I've gotten one of these slides constructed, so I'm going to show you what we've got here. So this is the slide. I don't have it covered yet. I'm going to put some felt on it, or not felt, but it's the material that they cover boat trailer runners with. So it'll slide against any plastic or metal or anything like that without damaging it. But what I've done is I've cut this end out to fit around the axle right here, and I angled this side to match this. I notched out the top to go around here, and because this is angled, you can see that angle, I went ahead and angled that so it would fit flat. So this is going to sit on here just like this. So this will sit all the way up against that, and then this will sit flush with that. So this is how it's going to sit, and then like I said, I'm going to have it wrapped in felt. So I'll kind of explain how I made this, and then I'm going to make the second one, and then I'm going to use a little bit of bracing in between the two just to make sure nothing shifts. I'm still figuring out exactly how I'm going to mount it. This side, I can just drill a hole in here and screw it into this, and then I'll probably put another like corner brace right here, and then same thing here. Down on this end though, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do. This is what I've got so far, and I'm just going to kind of show you what I did to make this. So the first thing I did was just measure the distance that I wanted from here to here. I obviously wanted it to overhang a little bit, but I didn't want it going too far that it was going to interfere with the tire and things like that. Once I get this constructed, I'm going to mess around with it a little bit and just make sure that this doesn't cause any interference. It shouldn't, because it's inside the tire, but I'm just going to make sure of that before I go covering it and doing all the framing and everything like that. So the first thing I did was just get the measurement. I believe it was 34 inches for mine. It'll be dependent on whatever your hand truck is, but yeah, so it was 34 inches for mine. And then the next thing that I did was cut this out. So to figure out this depth here, I took my combination square and just set it on top of the axle, and I knew I wanted it to come down to the bottom here. This is a much smaller space, but I wanted a little bit more coverage there. So I went ahead, I took this, set it on top, ran my blade down to there, and that set my depth. And then I just measured this diameter with my calipers. If you don't have a caliper, you can always just kind of set the edge of this right here, and then, you know, put one side here and then the other side here. You'll just have to make sure that it's straight up and down. Or you could do, you know, you could just get the inside here at the very bottom. I've rounded over these corners, but when it's a straight corner, it's easier. So then you can do this side and just figure out what that measurement is. So once I got that done, I figured out the depth that it needed to be, and I went ahead and cut this out. And then after I did that, I just set this on the edge here. I put it over the edge like this, slid it up against where it was going to sit, and then I just marked it on there. So let me see if I can show you that a little bit better. So I set this over the edge, and obviously before I cut it off, it was hanging down lower. So I just butted it up against this brace, marked it right there, and then cut it off. So then once I had that, then I was ready to get this side done. So for this one, I kind of did the same thing. I just slid this back, set it down here, scribed a line there, and got the angle, and I just set my circular saw to that angle, and I cut in on it a little bit to the line. So I marked this angle, but then I also marked the depth of this to here. And so once I got that, I set the angle on my circular saw to this angle. I cut in as far as I could to that mark, but obviously since it's a circular blade, it didn't cut everything. Then I just took my coping saw and finished that cut there, and then cut this off right there. Once I got done with all of that, I just took a sander to it and sanded everything down, and then I rounded the corners over with the sander as well. The reason I rounded the corners over, it's not really necessary, but I'm going to be wrapping this with felt, like I said, and so I just wanted those corners rounded just so they wouldn't be sharp edges when that felt gets on there. So that's how I made this one. I'm going to go ahead and get the next one made, and then we'll test everything, make sure the hand truck works properly. We can lay it all the way back and all that stuff. It's not going to be hindered at all. And then once we make sure that that's good, we'll go ahead and wrap these with felt, and we'll be all done. All right, y'all, so here is our semi-final product. So we've got both of the slides constructed. The one thing that I forgot to show you and tell you about before I went on to making this other one was that cardboard template. So when I was trying to decide what contour I wanted, I didn't want to cut this and then not like it. So what I wound up doing was I cut the bottom profile with, you know, this notch and everything out of a piece of cardboard, and then I just set the cardboard up here in place just like that, and I drew on the cardboard what contour I thought I wanted, and then I cut it out. Once it looked good on the cardboard, I cut it out, and then as you saw, I just transferred that over to the wood. So both of these look really good. So now I'm going to figure out exactly how I'm going to secure them. This end, like I said, we're probably just going to screw in. And then this end we'll just have to figure something out. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what kind of hardware I've got here, figure out what we might be able to use. I'm also going to cut some braces for in here and see exactly where we want to be with that. So I'll be back with you guys in just a minute. Okay, y'all, so I figured out what I'm going to do here. So I drilled a hole in this brace on both sides and in this top plate. So this one I'm going to put a screw through here, and it's going to be like back here where where I shaved this piece down. So we'll put a screw in there, in here, and in here. And then I'm going to be putting this bracing right across here. So I'm going to put 3 braces in. I'll put one there, one in the middle, one at the bottom. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get the second brace installed. And once I get done with that, I'm going to take this thing off of there to get the third one put in, because as you can see down here, we're not going to be able to get screws in past those tires, but I want to make sure that I've got everything else done, so that I need 2 of these braces in here to make sure that this thing stays held true and square and all that stuff when I put those in. So just going to decide exactly where I want this one. Probably right about there. And this last one is going to sit right here all the way at the bottom. Alright, so let's see how this thing fits on here. So these cabinet screws are not going to be quite long enough. I mean, they went in, but they didn't hold very good. So I'm going to see if I can find some longer screws to use just to hold this thing in place a little bit better. Okay, so I did wind up finding some 1.5 inch deck screws, so I'm going to use those for this instead. They should hold much better. Actually, I already put the front ones in and they do definitely hold better, so that's a good thing. There we go. All right, let's take a look. So that completes the actual slide. Everything works well. You can lay it all the way back. Nothing is hindered as far as that goes. I do like that I have a piece of wood here because that brings my push point a little bit farther back and should make it a little bit easier to use. So let's take it over to the truck and just see how it does sliding up the tailgate before I wrap it and all that stuff. I just want to make sure everything works well. Alright, so if I've got my pack out set here, we'll just kind of set that there. Climb up in the truck. And now we should be able to just pull it up into the truck. Oh yeah, much better. And then coming back out, and that's not much of a drop at all, which is nice. I can just set it right down. So that's going to work really well. You can see it is, scuffing on the tailgate, so I am definitely going to wrap it, but I think this is going to work out really well. This is going to help me with a lot of other things too. So anytime that I need to load anything back here using this, that's definitely going to be much, much easier. All right, y'all, I'm going to go grab the felt for this. I think I have enough in the attic. I'm hoping I do. So I'm going to go grab some of that and we'll get this thing wrapped. Okay, y'all, so I do have some of this felt. So I'm going to put this on here. First thing I'm going to do, though, is set my staple depth. So I'm going to take these out. These are my 1.5s that I was using before. I have some 1/2 inch staples here that we're going to use for this. All right, so we're going to stretch this out. I'm going to cut a little bit more than what I actually need, and then we can trim it when I'm done. All right, so set this on here. Try to center it up as best I can, and I'm just kind of using my fingers to judge where I think the edge is. Should be decent there. So I may wind up having to take this off to get this done all the way, just because I'm going to have this in the way. We'll have tires in the way back there. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. All right, y'all, well, here it is. It is all done. I think it looks really good. Should function really well. So I'm going to take it over to the truck and see how it does on the tailgate. No damage, no scrubbing. I think that's going to work really well. All right, y'all. Well, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It works really well, so hopefully that'll make things a lot easier. I forgot to mention why I initially started this. So obviously the pack out stuff, but I also just want the hand truck to be easier to load into the truck. So I had to bring a dryer home from one of the salons a few weeks ago, and I tried to load it in the back of the truck with this, and although I did wind up getting it, it was really a struggle because what I wound up having to do was tie a ratchet strap here and a ratchet strap in the truck and get it up until the tires hit the tailgate, and then crank it down, hold it there, get out of the truck, lift the wheels up in, and then get it in the truck. And the reason I had to do that was because without this here, there was too much tire, and when the tire would hit the tailgate, it was starting to try to lift it up instead of just going over into the truck bed. So that started my thought process of either buying a new hand truck or modifying this one to work. And so that, along with the pack out stuff, is why I decided to make this video and build this slide system. So I think it works really well. I'm very happy with it. We'll see how it does once we start loading pack out stuff. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm probably still gonna have to take a few of the boxes off the top. It's just gonna be too heavy and big and cumbersome. I'm not gonna be able to transport it with that big stack that tall anyway. But this should make it a lot easier to get at least 3 or 4 of those boxes in the back all at one time, and make it easier to transport over rough terrain and things like that. Last thing to mention, so I know that the comments are probably just blowing up right now with comments about me using the circular saw to make this contour instead of using the jigsaw. The reason that I did that is the first contour cut that I made was for the bottom side on one of these slides, and because my jigsaw blade is not long enough to make it through this material, it deviated about 1/8 of an inch during the cut. And so it made it very uneven. So I decided when I came back to do the rest of them that I would use the circular saw, because it would make a square cut, and then I would just shave it off until I got to the point that I could use the front edge of that blade to make that contour. And then I also knew that I was going to be sanding it, so I could smooth out any rough edges or anything like that, any corners that it created. So it worked out well, but I'm sure the comments are blowing up with roasting me over that. I don't really care. I don't have a bandsaw. A bandsaw would have been great for this project, but I don't have one. So I just made do with what I had, and just made it work. So it wound up working out okay. These came out really, really nice. I think they're going to function well and really help me out in the future. So all that said, if you liked it, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification, and we will see you guys on the next one.